There is a specific frequency that terrifyingly matches the human body, between 4 and 8 Hz. If a machine vibrates at this frequency, your hands cannot react fast enough to stop it. Your brain sees the movement, sends a signal to your muscles, but by the time your muscles move, the machine has already snapped back the other way. You enter a feedback loop. You aren't controlling the machine anymore. You are amplifying the crash. In aviation, they call it flutter. In civil engineering, they call it resonance. But in motorcycling, we have a different name for it: the Death Wobble. For 50 years, engineers have been fighting a war against this invisible force. And every time they try to fix it, they accidentally build a new way to kill us. This is the story of 3 specific motorcycles. Each one was built to solve a problem. And each one proved that you cannot cheat physics. The era of the Widowmaker. Kawasaki wanted to build the fastest bike in the world. They succeeded with the engine. The H2 750 was a 2-stroke monster. It had the power-to-weight ratio of a missile. When you launched the H2, the torque was so violent that the frame physically twisted like a wet towel. The rear wheel and the front wheel were no longer in the same line. As the bike straightened out, the frame snapped back like a spring. This created a weave. At 100 miles per hour, the bike would gently oscillate. It was scary, but it was predictable. However, the engineers made a fatal calculation error with the weight distribution. Because the engine was so light and the power was so abrupt, the front tire barely touched the ground. With zero weight on the front tire, the self-correcting physics of the steering geometry stopped working. The result? If you hit a bump at 80 miles per hour, the handlebars didn't just shake. They snapped lock to lock in 0.2 seconds. The H2 taught us a bloody lesson. A fast engine in a soft frame is a death sentence. So, the industry panicked. They decided, we need stiff frames. We need aluminum. We need rigidity. And that led to an even bigger disaster. Enter the 1997 Suzuki TL1000S. The engineers solved the H2's problem. This bike was stiff. The aluminum trellis frame was rock solid. It wouldn't twist. But by making the bike so stiff and powerful, they created a packaging nightmare. The V-twin engine was huge. There was no room for a rear shock absorber. So, they reinvented the wheel. They installed a rotary damper. Here is the physics problem. Energy cannot be destroyed. It can only be converted into heat. A normal shock absorber spreads that heat over a long piston. The rotary damper tried to contain all the energy of a 130 miles per hour superbike into a metal box the size of a soda can, and they mounted it right next to the exhaust pipe. The oil inside boiled. When oil boils, it loses viscosity. It turns into water. Suddenly, you had a stiff, powerful bike with zero damping. Unlike the H2, which warned you with a gentle weave, the TL1000S gave no warning. You would hit a bump in a corner, the rear wheel would bounce, and the stiff frame transferred that energy directly to the steering head. Snap! The Death Wobble returned. Suzuki was forced to retrofit steering dampers, basically a band-aid, to mask the problem. Engineers realized that mechanical suspension wasn't enough. They needed something faster. They needed a computer. This brings us to today, the safe era. Modern bikes use a 6-axis IMU, inertial measurement unit, a computer that reads the bike's position 100 times per second. If the bike starts to wobble, the computer cuts the throttle. If the wheel lifts, the computer applies the rear brake. The Death Wobble should be extinct. But we have introduced a new problem, the sensor disconnect. On a mechanical bike, you can feel the limit. You can feel the tires slipping. On a digital bike, the computer hides the limit from you. It fixes your mistakes. Until it can't. There is a phenomenon called the event horizon of grip. You feel like a god. The electronics are managing the wobble. They are managing the slide. You push harder. You lean further. And then, the laws of physics exceed the software's parameters. The computer gives up. In 1 millisecond, you go from perfect control to total chaos. This is the high-side crash of the modern era. The bike doesn't wobble, it ejects you. We haven't fixed the danger. We have just hidden it behind a microchip. So, what is the lesson? The Kawasaki H2 was too flexible. The Suzuki TL1 OOS was too complicated. The modern superbike is too numb. The truth is, a motorcycle is inherently unstable. It is an inverted pendulum moving at 180 miles per hour. You can add aluminum frames. You can add rotary dampers. You can add artificial intelligence. But you cannot delete the frequency. That 4 Hz vibration is always waiting in the chassis. It is the heartbeat of the machine. And if you get comfortable, if you forget the physics, it will remind you who's really in charge. Ride safe and check your steering damper.